When did I become someone I didn't know? My daughter Ren hadn't dated anyone since her mother passed 3 years earlier, so when she finally brought a guy home, I was terrified I'd ruin it. Especially because Andrew arrived in a button-down, with a firm handshake and a decent bottle of wine, looking me dead in the eye as he promised to treat Ren with respect. I'd rehearsed all week, afraid I'd come off like the overprotective dad who'd already scared off 2 relationships before they got serious enough for introductions. After her mom died, Ren and I had become each other's entire world, and I knew she needed to let someone else in, even if it broke me to share her. And Andrew seemed perfect. When he learned I loved fishing, his whole face lit up. He talked about trips with his late father before cancer took him 2 years earlier. That weekend, Andrew and I went to the lake. Just us. We spent 6 hours on the water, talking about everything. His accounting job, his plan to propose once he saved for a proper ring. He asked about marriage, how to be a good partner, truly listening when I spoke about losing my wife and wishing for more time. When I said Ren hadn't really smiled since the funeral, he promised he'd do everything to bring joy back into her life. When he helped me load the boat and I called him son, his eyes filled like I'd returned a piece of him he'd lost with his dad. Over the next few months, Andrew became the son I never had. More importantly, he brought Ren back from the edge. Each time I saw her, there were flashes of the happy girl I'd missed since her mother died. Andrew would stop by on weekends to help with the yard when Ren was on nursing shifts, fixed my garage door without letting me pay him, and started joining me for Thursday dinners when Ren worked late. At Thanksgiving, he gave a beautiful toast about finding not only love with Ren, but the family he'd lost when his father died. Everyone got choked up, even my brother, who never cries. When my own father died suddenly in February, Andrew took time off work to help with arrangements and stood beside me at the service like real family. He even asked for my blessing to propose with his grandmother's vintage ring. I told him nothing would make me happier than to officially call him my son. We began taking weekend trips together, all 3 of us, camping at state parks where Andrew woke early to brew coffee over the fire. On a mountain trip, he taught me to fly fish, something I'd always wanted, but never had anyone patient enough to show me. He stood in that freezing river for 3 hours, fixing my cast without frustration when I tangled the line for the 20th time. Watching Ren watch us from the shore, smiling like she hadn't since before cancer took her mother. I thought maybe we'd both found our way through grief. Then everything shattered. One night, someone pounded so hard on my door I grabbed the bat from my closet. I yanked it open, ready to swing, and Ren stood there in pajamas, barefoot in the freezing dark, the entire left side of her face swollen, purple and black. Her eye was sealed shut, blood dripping from her split lip onto her white shirt as she crumpled into my arms, sobbing so hard she couldn't form words. When she could speak, she said Andrew had been hitting her for months, starting with grabbed wrists and shoves, escalating to punches where clothes would hide the bruises. He'd convinced her she was lucky to have him after being so damaged by her mother's death, that no one else would want someone so broken, and she'd ruined everything if I found out because I'd finally seemed happy again. That night, he'd gotten drunk, accused her of cheating because she smiled at a grocery clerk, and knocked her out when she tried to leave. The man I'd called son had been destroying my daughter while I taught him my grandfather's fishing spots and shared family recipes. I thought about every sign I'd missed while celebrating Ren's return, the heavier makeup, the flinch when Andrew moved too quickly, how she went quiet at dinners while he monopolized the stories, her asking about a girls' trip and Andrew joking why she'd ever need to go anywhere without him. That strange moment at Easter when she dropped a plate and turned white with terror before Andrew smiled and said, "Accidents happen." How she stopped wearing her usual clothes and covered every inch of skin. My daughter had been screaming, in silence while I thanked Andrew for saving her. I held Ren as she cried herself to sleep on my couch. Even unconscious, her body shook, from injuries I couldn't see under her clothes. When she woke hours later, disoriented and panicked, then recognized my living room, I looked at her ruined face and thought about what her mother would want. Before she died, my wife made me promise I'd protect our daughter no matter what, that I'd be both parents, guardian, and comfort. Staring at Ren's battered face, something cold and final settled in my chest. I knew exactly what her mother would expect of me now. I kissed her forehead gently around the bruises and tucked the blanket tighter around her shoulders. I'm going to take care of this permanently, I told her. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. You're never going to have to worry about Andrew again. The same sun would rise tomorrow on whatever came next. I must have dozed off at the table because suddenly Ren's hand was on my shoulder, shaking me gently. The clock read 7 a.m., 3 hours gone like nothing. Dad. Her voice was small, careful. Did you go see him? I looked up at her wrecked face, the bruises darker in the morning light. She knew, of course she knew. We'd always been able to read each other, especially after her mother died. He's leaving town, I said simply. She sank into the chair across from me, wincing as her ribs protested. What did you do? What needed to be done? We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of unspoken truths filling the space between us. Then Ren started to cry again. But these weren't tears of fear or pain. They were tears of shame. I should have been stronger, she whispered. Should have left months ago. Should have... Stop. I reached across and took her. Anna, none of this is on you. 2 hours later, I was helping Ren into the car. Every movement hurt. I could see it in the way she held her breath getting into the seat, the way her hand pressed against her ribs. The hospital wasn't far, but every bump made her flinch. We need to document everything, I said, though the words tasted bitter. Document it for what? So Andrew could lawyer up and claim she was lying? The ER was quiet for a Tuesday. Dr. Michelle Schwartz took us back immediately when she saw Ren's face. She was gentle and thorough, cataloging every bruise with clinical precision. Purple-black around the eye, split lip needing 3 stitches, bruised ribs, possibly cracked, finger marks on both upper arms, older bruises on her back and different. Stages of healing, yellow from weeks ago, purple from last week. The state will press charges even if you don't want to, Dr. Schwartz explained while taking photos. With injuries this severe, it's out of your hands. Ren nodded numbly. I paced the hallway while they finished, my hands clenching and unclenching. Every photo was evidence of my failure to protect her. Every bruise was a moment I'd laughed at Andrew's jokes instead of seeing him clearly. At 11, Detective Elizabeth Moody arrived. She was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes and the kind of competence that earns immediate trust. She interviewed Ren alone while I wore a groove in the linoleum outside. Through the door window, I saw Ren crying as she spoke, Detective Moody handing her tissues and waiting patiently. An hour passed, then another. When they finally came out, both women looked depleted. Mr. Atkins, Detective Moody said, we're going to find Andrew and arrest him. Attempted murder, assault, battery. He's facing real time. If you can find him, I said. Her expression hardened. Men like Andrew always think they're smarter than they are. We'll find him. When we got home that afternoon, I wasn't taking chances. I installed new deadbolts on every door while Ren rested on the couch. Her friend Laura Gonzalez brought soup and stayed with Ren while I reinforced windows and checked sightlines from the street. Has he tried to contact you? Laura asked quietly. No, Dad scared him last night. Ren glanced at me. He won't come here. But we were both wrong. The next day, Andrew showed up at the hospital where Ren worked. Security footage showed him arguing with guards, demanding to see her, claiming he was still her emergency contact. He caused such a scene that 3 guards had to drag him out. Ren's boss put her on immediate leave for her safety, and everyone else's. He's taking everything from me, Ren said when she got home. My job, my sense of safety, everything. It's temporary, I told her, though we knew some things don't come back. 3 days after the confrontation, Detective Moody called with frustrating news. They couldn't find Andrew to serve the restraining order. His apartment was empty, cleared out in a hurry. Phone off, cards unused, car missing. Do you have somewhere else you can stay? She asked. Family out of town? We're not running from him, Ren said firmly. Why had Andrew put on such a perfect show for months if his real plan was just to hurt Ren? The fishing trips, family dinners, helping with my father's funeral. That's a lot of effort for a secret brute. But I saw the fear in her eyes. Andrew. Knew our routines, our schedules, where we shopped, where we ate. He'd spent months studying us while pretending to love us. That evening, I went to my truck for groceries and found all 4 tires slashed. Deep, angry cuts, flat as pancakes. A note under the windshield in Andrew's handwriting. You took everything from me. As darkness fell, we stayed by the lake. 2 people forever changed, bound by blood both shared and spilled. The water was calm, reflecting the first stars. We were not calm. Maybe we never would be again. But we were alive. We were together. And sometimes when the world shows its teeth, that's the only victory that counts. Ren took my hand, her grip firm and sure. Mom would understand, she said, about the monsters we became to fight the monster. She'd understand that. Sometimes love means becoming something terrible to protect what matters. The lake held all our memories, the good ones with Andrew before we knew, and the knowledge of what we did after. It would keep our secrets. This place where I'd once been happy and innocent would now remind me that innocence is a luxury we can't afford. We were survivors, Ren and I. Not victims, not heroes, just 2 people who did what was necessary when the system failed. We chose each other over everything else, even our own souls. And as we walked back to the car in the dark, leaving the lake to its ancient quiet, I knew we'd make that choice again, every time. Time to close the book on this one, folks. Appreciate you letting me bring my brand of commentary to your day. Like the video. It helps more than you think. Daniel came to help me change them, bringing his whole kit from the garage. While we worked, he said quietly, "I've got a gun you can borrow if you need it." "Not yet," I said, though we both knew that was shifting. "The offer stands," Daniel said. "Some problems can't be fixed with talking." That night, day 4 since the confrontation, Ren woke at 2 a.m. screaming. I found her barricaded in the bathroom, convinced Andrew was in the house. She'd shoved the hamper against the door and was crouched in the tub, shaking violently. "He's here," she kept saying. "I heard him. He's in the house." It took an hour to calm her enough to come out. We checked every room together, every closet, under every bed. The house was empty, but the fear stayed. She asked me to check again, then again. "Would you really have killed him?" she asked, as dawn crept in. "That night at his apartment?" I didn't answer. We both knew. On the 5th day, we started rotating places. Daniel's house for one night, a motel the next, Laura's apartment. Never the same place twice, never a pattern. Ren hated it. Hated being driven from her home. Hated giving him that power. "This is what he wants," she said. "To control us even when he's not here." Detective Moody checked in daily, irritated by Andrew's ability to stay hidden. "He has to surface eventually. Men like him can't stay away. Obsession won't let them." On the 7th day, we made the mistake of stopping home to grab more clothes. The house looked normal from the outside, but inside things were off. Photos turned face down. My wife's picture missing from the mantel. And on Ren's bed, a dead fish, the kind we used to catch at the lake. He'd been in our house, touched our things, left his mark to show he could reach us whenever he wanted. Ren stood in her doorway, staring at the fish on her pillow. Something in her expression hardened. "I'm not letting him chase us from Mom's house. This is our home." "Ren, no." Her voice was steel. "We stop running. We make our stand here." The 8th day began with Daniel calling, tight, urgent. "Mike, I just saw your boy Andrew at the Chevron on Route 9. He was buying gas cans, talking to himself, looked wrecked, like he hadn't slept in days." My blood ran cold. Gas cans meant fire. Fire meant a plan. "Did you call the police?" "Yeah, but he was gone before they got there. Mike, he looked bad, real bad, like a man with nothing left to lose." That evening, I was cleaning Daniel's gun in the garage when Ren found me. I'd finally taken him up on his offer, telling myself it was just a precaution, but we both knew better. She stood in the doorway watching me oil the barrel, unreadable. "Teach me," Ren said. "I need to know how to protect myself." Her voice was steady, resolved. "You won't always be there. And Andrew, he's not going to stop." So I taught my daughter to hold a gun. We went to the basement where the sound wouldn't carry. With it unloaded, I showed her the safety, how to check the chamber, how to aim. Her hands were steady, steadier than mine had been that night at Andrew's place. "Mom would hate this," she said, sighting down the barrel at an invisible target. "No," I said. "Your mom would hate that it's necessary." 2 more days crept by. We moved like ghosts, always watching, always ready. Then Detective Moody called with what she called good news. We tracked him to the riverside. "Motel off Highway 60, she said, excitement edging into her professional tone. "We're arresting him tomorrow morning. This will be over soon." Wren actually smiled when I told her. A real smile. The first since the night she showed up barefoot and bleeding. We ordered pizza and pretended things were normal. Pretended. We weren't both armed now, remade by Andrew's poison into people we didn't recognize. But the arrest went sideways. Detective Moody called the next morning, her voice flat with frustration. He ran, saw us coming and bolted in his car, crashed into a tree 2 miles down. Is he? I couldn't finish with Wren listening. Injured, but alive. Broken. Arm. Concussion. He's in custody now. She paused. But Mike, he's saying you attacked him first, that Wren is lying about the abuse. His lawyer's already building a case. The trial was set 6 months out. 6 months of waiting, of glancing over our shoulders, of Andrew's shadow stretching long. Worst of all, a week later he made bail. It's substantial, Detective Moody assured. He'll have an ankle monitor. The judge says he isn't a flight risk. Wren went pale at the news. That cold thing in my chest spread a little farther. Andrew crashed at his cousin's, just outside the restraining order's 1,000-foot buffer. We'd see his car at the legal distance from our house, from Wren's work, from the grocery store. Always watching, always there. The police said they couldn't do anything if he wasn't breaking the order. He's smart, Detective Moody admitted on a check-in. Knows exactly how far to push without violating terms. That night, I followed him to a bar downtown. I sat in my truck, watching through the window as he laughed with friends, gesturing wide. I could see him playing the victim, probably spinning tales about his crazy ex and her violent father. They believed him. Men like Andrew always get believed. I sat with Daniel's gun on the seat beside me, thinking how easy it would be. Wait for him to stumble out drunk. Follow to a dark spot. Stage a mugging gone wrong. But Wren needed me here, not in prison. So I drove home and found her at the kitchen table, sleepless. "You followed him," she said. Not a question. "Yeah." "Did you?" "No, but I wanted to." She nodded, understanding exactly. We were fighting the same internal war now, the one between who we were and who Andrew was turning us into. 3 days later, Andrew cut his ankle monitor and vanished. The call came early. Detective Moody sounded exhausted. "He's in the wind. We're searching, but be careful. Lock everything. We'll have a unit outside your house." We spent that day barricaded inside, jumping at every sound. The cruiser outside was reassuring, but if Andrew truly wanted in, we knew he'd find a way. Men like him always do. That afternoon, they found his car at the lake. Our lake. The peaceful place we'd spent so many mornings fishing, where he'd called me Pops, and I'd shown him how to tie flies. He was poisoning every good memory, turning them into weapons. "We're searching the area," Detective Moody said. "But there's a lot of ground." He wasn't running. We both knew he was planning. The next evening, Daniel called from his garage. His voice shook, a kind of fear I'd never heard from a man who survived 3 tours in Afghanistan. "He was here, Mike, in my garage with a knife. We fought. I broke his arm, the good one, but he got away. I need stitches, but I'll be all right." "Daniel, Don't. Just keep that gun close. He's hurt and desperate. That makes him more dangerous, not less." The next morning, Andrew called from a stolen phone. His voice was slurred from pain meds, barely coherent, but the rage came through. "This is your fault," he rambled. "You turned her against me. We were happy. We were perfect. You ruined everything." "Come try something," I said, voice steady. "See what happens." "Oh, I will. I'm going to take everything from you, just like you took everything from me. The line went dead. We knew it would end soon. One way or another. That afternoon, Detective Moody came by with evidence bags full of journals from Andrew's car, pages and pages about Wren, detailed plans to take her, receipts for rope and sedatives. She showed photos of the pages, Wren's name scrawled hundreds of times in increasingly frantic handwriting. Wren ran to the bathroom and threw up. I stared at the photos, the physical proof of Andrew's obsession, and felt that cold thing in my chest freeze solid. We need to get you somewhere safe, Moody said. Somewhere he doesn't know. That night, I took Wren to our cabin in the woods. 3 hours north, a place her mother and I had bought years ago but seldom used. Andrew never knew it existed. We should be safe there. But when we arrived, fresh footprints circled the cabin, boot prints that weren't ours, looping around, the building like a predator stalking prey. He found us, Wren whispered. We were alone out there, no service, no neighbors for miles, exactly what he wanted. I checked every lock and window while Wren unpacked. We had food for a few days, the gun, the bat. We could hold out till morning, then drive back and regroup. But something felt wrong. The woods were too quiet, like even the animals sensed a hunter nearby. At Tenwar, the power died. No flicker, just instant darkness. Not an accident. Stay calm, I whispered, though my heart hammered. Get the gun. Footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, on the deck. Power goes out at a remote cabin while a dangerous stalker circles? Somebody binge-watched too many horror movies and thought, let's run all the classics at once. He wanted us to know he was there. Wren, lock yourself in the bathroom, I said. No. Firm. We stay together. She had the gun. I had the bat. We stood in the dark living room, backs to the wall, waiting. Andrew's voice came from outside, muffled but clear. I love you, Wren. I can't live without you. His words swung between pleading and threatening. Love and hate, mixed into a toxic stew of obsession. We were meant to be. Your father poisoned you against me. But I forgive you. I always forgive you, even after you made me hurt you. You're sick, Wren called, her voice stronger than I expected. I'm sick? Andrew laughed, high and unhinged. You're the one who made me like this. You and your damaged little family. Your dead mother and broken father. I tried to fix you, but you wouldn't let me. The window exploded. Glass rained across the room as Andrew climbed through. Broken arm in a filthy cast, good hand gripping the knife from Daniel's garage. His eyes were wild, unfocused, like he was seeing beyond this room. I swung the bat, but he ducked fast for someone so injured. He lunged at Wren, knife raised, screaming something incoherent about love and betrayal. The gun fired. The sound was impossibly loud in the small cabin, making my ears ring. Andrew staggered, red blooming across his shirt, but didn't fall. He took another step toward Wren, knife still up. I brought the bat down on his shoulder with everything I had. I felt bones give, heard him scream. The knife clattered as he dropped to his knees. He pitched forward, blood pooling under him on the cabin floor. His breathing grew wet, ragged. Wren stood frozen, gun still raised, staring at what we'd done. I checked his pulse. Weak, but there. He was dying, but not gone. We had minutes to decide. I reached for my phone to call 911, but Wren stopped me. Wait, she said, voice perfectly steady. She looked down at Andrew bleeding on the floor, recalling every bruise, every threat, every moment of terror. What would Mom do? We both knew the answer. Her mother would protect her daughter at any cost, would choose Wren's safety over Andrew's life without a second thought. We stood there for 5 long minutes, watching his breathing grow shallower. His eyes found Wren one last time, confused and angry even at the end. Then they went empty. Only then did I call 911. There's been an intruder, I said calmly. He broke in and attacked us. We defended ourselves. We need police and an ambulance, though it's too late for him. The police arrived within the hour, though. It felt like days. Detective Moody took our statements separately, but our stories matched because they were mostly true. We just left out those 5 minutes of watching, of choosing. The scene supported our account. Broken window, knife, Andrew's history. Moody's eyes lingered on mine a beat too long, like she could see through the careful timeline, but she only nodded and shut her notebook. "We'll need you both at the station for formal statements," she said. "Standard procedure." The 2 a.m. drive to the station felt surreal. Ren sat beside me, still wearing the shirt with Andrew's blood. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? We'd crossed the line together, become accomplices in something darker than self-defense. At the station, they split us. Different rooms, different detectives. Christopher Clark interviewed me while Moody took Ren. I stuck to the story, bar the eye, break-in, the attack, defending ourselves. I described Andrew climbing through with a knife, Ren firing when he charged, me swinging the bat. All true. I just compressed the timeline, letting him die immediately instead of over those long 5 minutes. "You did what you had to," Detective Clark said when I finished. "Clear self-defense." But his tone said he knew there was more. Cops always know. They just decide what to pursue. When they released us at dawn, Ren looked hollow. We drove. Home in silence, past news vans already rolling up to the cabin. By morning, Andrew's death would be everywhere. The next day, the story hit local news. Woman kills ex-boyfriend in self-defense after months of abuse. They used Andrew's booking. Photo from his arrest making him look dangerous. They used Ren's nursing school graduation photo, making her look innocent. The narrative wrote itself. Brave survivor fights back. Nobody questioned it. Ren's phone buzzed nonstop with messages from friends who hadn't known. She didn't answer, just stared at her hands, the hands that held the gun, that pulled the trigger. "They all want to know why I didn't tell them," she said quietly. "How do I explain that shame is louder than fear?" Daniel came by to fix the window in my truck Andrew had smashed weeks earlier. We worked in comfortable silence, the way men do when words would only make things worse. Before he left, he squeezed my shoulder. "Your wife would be proud," he said. "You protected Ren. That's what matters." I wanted to believe him, but I kept thinking about those 5 minutes, about the choice we made to let Andrew die. Would she be proud of that too, or horrified at what we'd become? The investigation wrapped quickly. In week 2, Moody called with the official word. No charges. Clear self-defense. The prosecutor wouldn't even bring it to a grand jury. Andrew's violent history, the restraining order, the break-in, the weapon, everything supported our account. "You can move on now," she said. But moving on isn't linear. Trauma doesn't end when the threat dies. It lives in your bones, rewires your DNA, changes you at a cellular level. Ren went back to work 3 weeks after that night. She tried to act normal, but I saw the differences. She flinched when male patients raised their voices. She checked every exit, kept her back to walls, never to doors. The easy trust she'd once had was gone, replaced by vigilance. "A patient grabbed my wrist today," she told me one evening, just trying to get my attention, but I nearly broke his fingers before I remembered where I was. We had our first real dinner 4 weeks after. Not takeout in silence, but a meal I cooked. Ren pushed food around for a while before speaking. "I'm not sorry he's dead," she said, meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry I had to pull the trigger. I'm sorry for what it's done to us, but I'm not sorry he's gone." "I know," I said, and I did. The guilt we carried wasn't about Andrew's death. It was about becoming the kind of people who could choose to let someone die. The next week I found Ren at the cemetery by her mother's grave. She talked softly, telling her mother everything about Andrew, the abuse, the cabin, who we've become. "I asked if she'd forgive us," Ren said when I sat beside her, "for what we did and didn't do." "What do you think she'd say?" "I think she'd say she's glad we're alive. That's all she ever wanted, for us to survive, even if surviving changed us." That afternoon, Moody stopped by the house. Not officially, she made clear, just checking in. Over coffee, she told us something that shifted the weight on my chest. "Andrew had 2 other restraining orders," she said quietly. Different states, different women, similar escalation. She paused, choosing words. You weren't his first victims. Another pause. But you were his last. Sometimes the system fails and people have to protect themselves. I'm glad you both survived. After she left, Ren and I sat with that. Andrew had done this before. He would have done it again. How many women had we saved by ending him? Next week, we went to Ren's apartment to pack Andrew's things. She'd been putting it off, but his cousin wanted his belongings. As we boxed up his clothes and books, Ren found something that drained the color from her face. Hidden cameras. 3 of them tucked in vents and behind frames. He'd been watching her even when he wasn't there. The violation felt new all over again, continuing even after his death. How long? Ren asked, though we knew there was no good answer. We burned the cameras in the backyard, watching plastic curl and smoke. Another secret between us. Another thing we'd never tell. Daniel and Laura helped us repaint that weekend, trying to cover the ghosts in every room. We painted Ren's old bedroom, the living room where she collapsed that first night, the kitchen where we made plans. Laura brought music and wine, trying to turn it into a fresh start instead of an exorcism. At one point, Daniel joked about my awful paint technique, and Ren actually laughed. Not polite or forced, a real laugh from her belly. For a moment, she looked like herself again, the girl from before Andrew, before the abuse, before the cabin. Then the shadow slid back. But that light gave me hope. We started therapy together, 8 weeks after. The counselor asked directly if we regretted that night. Ren and I looked at each other. A whole conversation in a glance. We'd never spoken about the 5 minutes, not directly. But we knew it lived between us. A shared secret that bonded us in darkness. We regret that it came to that, I said. We regret not seeing the signs sooner. Those 5 minutes of watching him die. Quite the detail to omit from statements, isn't it? Makes you wonder what Moody really knows when she mentions those other restraining orders so casually later. We regret that Andrew chose violence and forced us to choose it too. But not the outcome? The therapist asked gently. No, Ren said, steady. Not the outcome. 2 months later, I found myself at the lake where Andrew and I used to fish. I stood on the shore, remembering peaceful mornings, teaching him to tie flies, him calling me Pops with tears in his eyes, talking about finding the father he'd lost. Was any of it real, or was it all manipulation to get closer to Ren? I'll never know. Predators like Andrew are expert chameleons, showing you exactly what you want to see. Ren found me there that afternoon. She stood beside me, skipping flat rocks across the water. We didn't talk for a long time, just watched ripples spread and fade. Does it matter? She finally asked. Whether any of it was real? I thought. I guess not. Real or not, it led to the same place. We survived, she said. That's what matters, even if we're different now. As evening came, the lake turned gold in the setting sun. Ren looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. Do you recognize yourself anymore? She asked, the question I'd avoided for 2 months. I thought about the man who taught Andrew to fish, who shared family recipes, who called him son. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder, capable of watching a man die without calling for help. No, I said, but I recognize the man your mother needed, the father who'd do anything to protect his daughter. She nodded, understanding completely. We were strangers to ourselves now, remade by violence and necessity.